Welcome, everybody, to the green team of the Legendarium podcast, Legendarium GT, you could call it. Little DBZ reference for you there. I'm your host, Yetti Beats, and with me today, I have Befuddled Panda,
Hello.
Kyptan,
Ayo.
and Drew from the Inking Out Loud podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Okay, so we're in for a fun episode today. We're not reviewing any books. Instead, we're going to play a little game, a science fiction and fantasy book draft for the year 2015. So I'll explain the rules real quick. We're going to be drafting books in a snake fashion for the 2% of listeners who actually know about sports. We're going to be drafting from 6 categories: fantasy book, sci-fi book, a book under 300 pages, debut author, female author, and then wild card, which can be a book from 2015 from any year or from any genre: horror, fiction, nonfiction, something freaky. I don't even want to know what we have up our sleeve. So those are the 6. And to start off, I thought we'd talk about where we as the panelists were in 2015 as a reader, as a person, and your fandom. And how about we start with our guest, Drew? What do you remember from 2015?
So 2015 was a watershed reading year for me because that was the year I first read The Acts of Cain.
Oh boy. I knew it was getting in here somehow.
Yeah, you didn't know what can of worms you were open with this particular year. But yeah, no, before my podcasting days, before Inking Out Loud, I ran a local book group. And 2015, we read both The Acts of Cain and The Gap Cycle by Stephen R. Donaldson. So it was some intense reading that year.
That is, what a double feature those 2 authors bring.
Yeah.
Kyptan, what about you?
Let's see. In 2015, that was about when I started following the Legendarium for the first time.
Oh.
And when I started getting back into organized and methodical reading. And so that was a fun year for books. That was there were a couple science fiction books which I will bring up today that really brought me back into harder sci-fi, which I really enjoyed.
That is your bread and butter, hard sci-fi. All right, Panda, do you remember your 2015?
I do. So 2015, it was when I was really getting back into reading because during college, it was all you had time to do was your, assigned reading, and I had a lot of assigned reading for my majors. So after graduating, I took time off and did not read very much, which was really sad because I love reading. And then it was around 2014 when I really got back into reading. And then 2015, it was I was in the zone and I read a lot more. And my reading taste was very eclectic. It goes from fantasy, sci-fi to general fiction, historical fiction, middle grade. It's just all over the place. So I had a really nice reading year. Although 2015 was also the year where I read Neil Gaiman for the first time, and I just read a lot of his stuff that year.
Do you remember what the first Gaiman book was that set you off?
So I actually did not like the first Gaiman book that I read. It was The Ocean at the End of the Lane. And nice. I know. I did not like it when I read it. I think I haven't reread it since then. I think I will like it more now that I'm more familiar with his style. But then I went on to read Stardust, Neverwhere, and then his newest book that year, Trigger Warnings. So, yeah.
Nice. I was hoping you were going to say American Gods was your least favorite, but that's fine. I'll take it. Ocean.
I actually haven't read that one. It's on my to-read list. I didn't read in publication order. It's just all over the place.
Yeah, it's the beauty of Gaiman. You can start anywhere, really. For me, I kind of had a perfect reading experience in 15. So I had like a lot of money saved up, and I moved back home again. So I was kind of in between jobs, but it was like 26, so you could still leech on their health insurance. So like I was in no rush to get a job, so I was just reading all the time. And I think I was really big into our fantasy at that point, like finding recommendations. And it was before I was like kind of burnt out on our fantasy, where I'm like, not hate this place, but I was like, I need to go somewhere else to get recommendations or learn about books. But yeah, I was just reading a ton of books from that year, which we'll talk about. So like when we picked this year, I actually found a few authors that became my favorite from reading their books for the first time. So it was it's a pretty impactful year for me, and like I was kind of getting back into fantasy myself at that point. So I'm excited to talk about it, though. And I hope I get every book I want. I don't. All right, so we'll start the draft. We're going to go in this order. Drew, since he is our guest, he gets to go first. Everyone unanimously, I can't say the word. Everyone agreed that should be the choice, not Kyptan. Panda, since she is newly engaged, is going second. Kyptan, since I don't want him to totally hate me, will go third, and I shall go last. I will say in a snake draft, the person who goes last gets to go twice. He goes fourth, and then it comes back around. So, bragging a little bit there. But,
Yep.
Drew, you are first. You have the first overall pick. You can pick out of any category. You're going to set the tone for this draft. What's your number one book and author going to be?
So, with the first pick in the 2015 Green Team of the Legendarium Science Fiction and Fantasy Draft, Drew McCaffrey of the Inking Out Loud podcast is proud to select the award-winning short story published by Tor.com, The Builders by Daniel Polanski.
God, I can't
Well,
curse on
he
this
went
podcast.
for it.
This was actually a tough choice. I have a couple other ones that I think are going to get sniped out from under me. So
This is brutal.
and this is going for the under 300 pages category.
Good choice. Good choice.
Yeah.
Got to put on my thinking cap. So why'd you pick it? What quick?
Yeah, so it is just one of the most fun, tightly written, fast-paced, enjoyable stories I've encountered in a long time. I like to describe it as Watership Down meets The Black Company. You know, it's anthropomorphized animal mercenaries getting the band back together to take revenge, and it ends on an absolute hammer blow of a line. I am not going to spoil it for anybody out there who hasn't read it. If you haven't, go read it. It is so good.
I have not read it.
Completely agree. Yeah, you
I haven't
Kip.
read it yet.
Yeah, both have.
It's on the list.
You're missing out. I mean,
It's short, apparently, so I can cram it out.
Oh, yeah. It's like 140 pages or something like that. Yeah.
Perfect.
yeah.
but the pages are like one of the chapters is like 2 sentences. Like it's a short 141 pages. So you could literally read it. Kip could definitely read it in one sitting. But yeah, I love Polanski. I feel like that's weirdly his best work. And I don't think he meant it to be that way. You know what I mean? I think this was like a joke book to him to write. So yeah, The Builders, classic book, great choice. Kip and Panda should go read it as soon as possible.
Okay, bye.
All right, Panda, you're up next. Is this a tough decision for you, or?
So we're going with under 300 pages.
Oh, okay.
Wait, am I just picking the same category or just pick any category?
Any category.
Yeah, any category.
Oh, okay. Any category.
Yeah.
Well, okay. I don't know if Yetti's gonna pick this one, but I'm gonna say it first.
I will pick it. I know what you're picking, but go ahead.
Okay. So for the sci-fi category,
I knew it. No.
Golden Sun by Pierce Brown.
Yep. Oh my god. Oh my goodness. I'm really thin on sci-fi, boy.
Sorry.
All right.
But of the initial trilogy for the Red Rising trilogy, Golden Sun is my favorite. It was just like the first book, it's got its weaknesses, and it's more like people tend to say it's more YA, and there's like Hunger Games aspects to it. But then the second book is just like it becomes its own thing, and there are so many twists and just backstabbing and the buildup and the cliffhanger at the end of this
Yes.
book
Ugh.
just killed me, and I had to read the third one almost immediately.
Panda. Yeah,
Sorry.
it's. I agree. I think you said it well. I think he has a big fan base, and I like Pierce Brown. But I do think he's kind of divisive, just because he's getting so popular. And I think, like you said, the first book is kind of people say it's kind of like a Hunger Games type of book.
Right.
The third book, as me and Kyptan have said, there's a twist that's terrible, a writing choice that is a total cop out for an author. But that second book is real. I think it's really, really good. I think it's like his best book he's written, most complete so far, where he keeps the plot moving. He knows how to put in these twists and turns that isn't. I'll just say it's not like Lacanius, for example, where it's just one after another and is a detriment to the story. It actually enhances the story. So yeah, I love this book, and like you said, the ending is fantastic, and great job, Panda. I
Yep.
really was just Kip. Drew did. I know Kip's read this series. I don't know if Drew has.
I have.
I have not.
Well,
Yeah, it is something that may end up getting covered on Inking Out Loud in the relatively near future. I've had a few different people kind of poke me about it,
yeah.
but yeah. In fact, John, if anybody here or anybody listening has heard our Star Wars episodes, John is always my guest for the Stars episodes. He loves Pierce Brown. So
I was listening to that today.
Yeah.
It's definitely Star Wars, I would say, was an influence on this series to an extent. I know it's
Oh, yeah.
sci-fi, but it's kind of sci-fi fantasy, you know.
Yeah.
I think, Kip, you said
Okay.
it leans more sci-fi, but I think there's
It definitely leans more sci-fi.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, there are some elements that are a little fantasy-esque, but I mean, it's got spaceships. It's
It's
the
sci-fi
technology.
Roman legions.
Sorry?
It's sci-fi Roman legions.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And
Okay.
the sixth book, which I mean, we're gonna get a seventh book, but the sixth book is coming out next year.
That worries me. That announcement, I was like, it reminded me of Brett Weeks all over again. I'm like, this isn't good.
Oh
This isn't
no.
good.
Or Jim Butcher.
Oh man.
I trust Pierce Brown. I will give him,
You know what? If
I trust
Lycanius
him.
had been split up a bit more, I would have been happier.
It's true.
Doubled, I would say. Just lastly, I think the Red Rising series is like a good popcorn fantasy, and I mean that as a compliment. I think that's what like popcorn entertainment fantasy can be, or sci-fi can be, and still be really entertaining.
at least the first trilogy.
I like the second trilogy, but I think he's stretching himself as an author, for good or more, for better and worse. I'm glad he's not doing the same thing, but
Yeah,
that first
it's definitely
trilogy
different.
is really in his lane. All right, Kip.
Mhm.
It's,
Cool.
I'm interested. I have no idea where you're going to get this.
I had no backup for this one, so I'm very glad that I got to do it. For debut novel,
Oh,
I am going with The Library at Mount Char by Scott Hawkins.
Dang it!
When I saw that book on the 2015 published list, I was like, Kip's gonna pick that.
oh my
So it's funny, I didn't have that for debut, so that's good, but I did have that as my top pick for fantasy.
Oh, nice.
Nice.
That book is so good.
I'm not going to have any picks to do. All right, Kip. Why did you like it?
Why did I like it?
Yeah.
Because the protagonist is insane. It's a lovely commentary on emotions and your roles in a family, and rebelling against, your pick.
You haven't read this, Panda?
Nope, I'm the only one I think out of this group.
I
This book
picked it
is
for
a
our Green
ride.
Team October book of the month for a reason.
September.
Yeah.
September. For our
Yes.
September book of the month for a good reason. Sorry, time is a flat circle.
Panda, I couldn't
Yeah, this
explain that book
Ugh.
to you if I wanted to.
Oh, it's okay.
It's
It is on my
insane in
list
the
to
best
read.
way.
It's a mystery, and it's a
I
weird
love
mystery, so it's
mysteries.
probably best if you don't say too much about it before you start reading it. But yeah, it's one of the most messed up like families that I've seen in fiction in a while, and it manages to do everything in a relatively short page count.
Right.
Mm,
Yeah.
And I feel attached to the characters, and I feel like they have lessons to teach. So happy with this book.
dang.
A disappointingly great pick.
Also,
so
one of the best one of the most absurd action sequences that I've seen in a long time.
I'm like, I don't know which one you're
I know,
talking
I was
about
right.
because there are several.
Oh my goodness. Wait, so a point of clarification for
Yep.
the rules. So it's basically if anybody picks that book for any of the categories, you
Mhm.
can't pick it
Yep,
anymore.
it's done.
Yes,
Okay.
off the table.
Got it, got it.
That's I really got to stress for this. All right, for my pick, I will ask, and I'll let you guys decide on a rule. Are graphic novels allowed in these categories?
Yes.
Yes.
Sure.
Thank God. Okay,
Yes.
so
Oh no, I think I know where you're going. No.
sorry, Panda. So for my sci-fi pick, I'm going to pick Saga Volume 5.
Fine.
Sorry, Panda. I didn't read much sci-fi. I'm not a huge sci-fi reader. It was between this and I'll just say a very large science fiction series that is ongoing, or not ongoing anymore. So if you haven't read Saga, I'm not going to try to explain it, but it's essentially kind of like a Romeo and Juliet story who have a child, and everyone is kind of after them. And it's in space, and there's crazy different creatures and assassins, and it deals with a lot of things like politics and just family. I would be lying if I told you I remember what Volume 5 was about, but I'm sure, I can't remember which one Volume 5 is, but I assure you it either brought me to tears or one it made me want to punch my fist through a wall. And so I'm actually not even a big graphic novel reader, as we've, Panda and Kip and I talk about on the Green Team episodes because we cover Saga. And this actually like blew me away. And it's the first series in volume that is ever compared to reading novels. Like give me that same feeling and experience to as reading novels, and I mean that in the least pretentious way possible. But it really has, and so I'd recommend it to anyone who just likes storytelling and just really great characters and relationships between characters. And if you like twists and turns and just and cliffhangers at the end of chapters, that's definitely the one
And the
favorite.
art.
Oh yes, thank you. And if we're talking artwork, it's my favorite artwork. And for me, for graphic novels and comics, which I don't read a lot, that's a big part for me. Because if there's artwork I'm not attached to, as I think Drew's talked about, kind of with White Sand, Sanderson stuff. I know you like White Sand,
Yeah.
but sometimes maybe the first volume, the art's not great.
Yeah, like for me, a lot of my love of White Sand comes from the rough draft prose version. And
Same.
I think the omnibus version that's coming out addresses some of my issues. You would hope, because I was involved in the direction that the omnibus took, but the artwork was never really like what did it for me, and I think it's rightfully criticized.
Yep.
So that is my science fiction. I put that in science fiction tab. All right, now I don't want to delay too much, but I really got to be careful with what tab I want to do now. All right.
You do Saga Volume 4.
Well, I thought that was 2014. That's over. It's tough to find what years things were released. All right, should I do? See, I also got to think of like what you guys will pick, and I think I know what you guys have read, but I also not totally sure. So, all right, I think I'm going to do debut author. I don't think you guys picked this, but just to get
Oh
a little.
no.
Is there one? I don't think so. I only
Go
have,
ahead.
No, there's no way you have this one. Maybe. I don't know. Beyond Redemption by Michael R. Fletcher.
Okay, cool. No, you're fine.
Man, everyone.
He's a grimdark guy, right?
Oh yeah, buddy. He's I would argue probably the most grim, darkest author there is in the genre. Well, I hate saying that because that's I hate that grim dark term, but I think he's one of the most underread authors in grimdark and just underappreciated, I guess. And Beyond Redemption is kind of about, it's hard to explain, but a world where you can have your personalities. Like someone has multiple personality disorder. That's like a magic power. So like someone who, what's that thing where you curse a lot?
Tourette's.
That's like a magical power. So, or just type like that. But in a grimdark kind of Western world, and there's just a group of three people who just don't get along at all and are just, not a good fit. One of them thinks he's the greatest swordsman in the world. Like his ego is so good that he actually is the greatest swordsman in the world because he thinks. So the magic system is very, very cool and inventive. And he's just, if you like grimdark, if you like that Mark Lawrence, Abercrombie type of thing, he fits in that mold. If you don't, he probably not for you. But for me, reading this author, I think I read it that year. I was like, who is this guy? I was like, I've never heard of him. And he really puts out fantastic books. So I wanted to bring him up on this podcast. So, in hope, like Drew does on his podcast, that people hear about these authors and books and hopefully try them out. So,
yeah, absolutely.
I'm so curious to see what you guys were really wanted to do for debut author. So I definitely missed one.
I got mine.
That's right.
I'm scared about Kyptan with debut author.
I did it already.
Yeah,
I'm done.
Yeah,
Mine's done.
picked it.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. You did.
Panda's the one who
I was thinking you went fantasy first. But, yeah.
So after me? Oh, so Kip, you are back up, right?
It's me again.
Yes.
Me again. Ooh. Okay. I can save a bunch of mine because I know none of you read them.
Very good strategizing. I like where your head's at.
Okay. Under fantasy, this might under female author, I'm going to put this one. Under female author, I am going to put The Fifth Season by N.K. Jemisin.
Oh. I didn't.
Nice.
That's like one of your favorites, Kip.
Oh yeah. Absolutely one of my favorites. The 3-part storytelling through 3 different women as they go through this post-apocalyptic, post-multi-apocalyptic seismic wasteland wilderness while dealing with this the magic system is very much conveyed through feelings and impressions as the person is discovering new parts of it, and I enjoy that in a magic system where like you along with the character are kind of like figuring stuff out about your abilities. But a lot has been said about the 5th season. A lot deserves to be said about the 5th season. I don't think it's going to be a first-time rec for anybody listening to this podcast, so I'll keep it pretty short. But absolutely one of my favorite books of the last 10 years.
I mean, it's got plenty of accolades. Didn't it win like the Hugo 3 years in a row?
Oh yeah.
And the Locust.
That's one of those books that pulled me in and was like, oh, okay, I'll read everything this author has written now. Yep. So I went through 6 Jemisin books in a row.
Oh my god.
Oh my.
It was a fun year.
That's going to be a fan favorite pick. We're going to get some points there. All right, Panda, you're up next.
Okay. So this next one, I'll be honest, I haven't actually read it, but it is definitely like once I'm done with Malazan, like the next fantasy series I want to tackle.
If this is the book I think it is, I might quit this podcast. I didn't think you'd pick it, but
yeah. I mean, when I was looking through, I was like, well, Yetti will probably pick it, but
I forgot you wanted to read
it. So for a debut, because technically this is his debut fantasy novel.
Okay.
It's The Grace of Kings.
Ken Liu. I know it.
By Ken Liu.
I was going to say, he put out a short story collection before this, didn't he? Paper...
Yes.
Okay.
The Paper Natter,
yeah,
but this is technically...
short story.
Okay.
Like my debut pick, the one I'm planning. He had published a couple of short stories, but never a full length. Yeah.
Okay.
Debut novel counts.
I allow
Totally
it. Yeah,
counts.
that's it.
Yeah.
That's it. And how dare you, Panda? How dare you?
Are you quitting this podcast episode now?
No. I mean, I'm just happy it's being brought up. I would love it on my team. I held off. I was thinking because I was going to pick it. I'm like, nah, I can say fantasy. I mean, no one's going to pick that. Then I forgot. You said you wanted to read it. No, it's
Yeah. And it's done now. The series is done. It was supposed to be 3 books, but then he, kept writing, and then it became 4.
Funny how that happens.
Yeah.
and it was worth it. He's like, not to use a green team term, but he's on my Mount Rushmore, and that series is for just fantasy series. I love them. I want you to read them. Panda, Kip, I think would love. Definitely the second book more, but I think it just goes into, he's so good at writing about society, and he bases it off real stuff, obviously, and the way he writes, I've said it before, but it's kind of like an omnipresent point of view where he starts high above, like talking about what's going on, then he zooms back down into like a personal thing where you're kind of in the character's head, and then it'll, like 2 paragraphs later, it'll go back onto a higher, talking about the world and stuff. It's not easy to pull off what he does, and I don't think it's for everyone, like, to read it, but it's very rewarding, and you get used to it, and it's I just never seen it pulled off like that. I think that could be really jarring, jumping from in mid-paragraph, like after a few paragraphs, not even chapter to chapter. But
You should read Malazan.
I would love to, but when I have the time.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, but I'm very excited for the Dandelion Dynasty once I'm able to get to it. I mean, it's just like, I haven't read that many fantasy stories that are set in like Chinese
Yes.
kind of culture,
Yep.
and with like that kind of technology that he has invented for this world, which, quote unquote, silk punk. So yeah, I'm very excited.
I think Kip would like it too, because he says all the creations he makes, which are probably based on real things, but he does, at least he says so, he does the science to make sure that
Yes.
that would be fairly feasible, where I think Kip would really appreciate that type of stuff, how he does it. So it's great. Drew, have you read anything by Ken Liu yet?
I have not. I've been like side-eyeing Dandelion Dynasty for years, and I just never end up picking it up.
It's a commitment. They're chunky books, so I mean, I get it.
Yeah, they are.
So is Lycanius.
Wow. They don't read like...
Don't remind me.
Oh
There's
dear.
little more. I hope half this podcast is just dunking on like candies. Little snippets here and there. Ugh. All right. Well, Panda, that was a great pick. Well, we're just coming out with the bangers here. So that was under debut, right?
Correct.
Yep.
All right.
So all 3 of you guys have done debut?
We've done our debuts. Yeah.
Yes.
Nice. All right, I can save that for last.
Smart
Unless
observation.
we pick it for sci-fi or something.
Actually, there is a possibility it could get crossover into another category. Although I have back-to-back picks here, so let me
do.
think about this for a moment here. I think for my second pick, I'm going to go with the only science fiction book published in 2015 that I have both read and liked.
Armada? That's good.
No, Illumine.
Oh.
By
nice.
Christoph and Amy Kaufman, which is it's a really cool structure. It's like multimedia basically. The way the words are put on the page is art in and of itself. You get all sorts of crazy designs. The story is told through text messages and emails and transmissions and things like that. There's an awesome kind of horror element to it. Just a really nice YA story. And that was the only sci-fi book I read that year that I enjoyed. I had a few DNFs in there.
Was Armada one of them?
No. That's Ernest Cline, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, the only thing I've read by him was Ready Player One, and I will never read another thing by him again.
I read Armada.
So did I.
Let me put it this way: it's worse than Ready Player One. That's all.
Yep.
Yep.
Yikes.
It literally has like a Star Wars timeline in
It's
the
so
book.
bad. It's so bad. What's worse
Oof.
is it's so bad, and I gave it 3 stars on Goodread. When I look back, I was so upset.
I actually just got my copy of Illuminae back from one of my friends. He gave me back Illuminae and Gemini, and he's waiting for Obsidio.
Nice.
Yeah.
Did you like that book, Kip?
Okay.
Because you're a
I really enjoyed it. I had a blast
Nice.
reading Illuminae. It started to get a little bit repetitive, but I still think it's excellent, especially for anyone who's in like their early teens. Early to late.
Yeah.
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 Did any
like,
of you
it's
do-
just a really solid YA book.
Did any of you do the audiobooks? Or just
I dove into the audiobooks just so I could hear the song that's in the second book.
Okay.
Oh my gosh. Rob played it for me. It is something.
I could see it on TikTok. I could see that song on TikTok.
Oh yeah. Man. Okay, well, so that was my second pick, and my third pick, I just because I think there is an outside chance, and I have more options for other things, I'm going to go with my debut as well. And I am picking The Sorcerer of the Wild Deeps by Kyptan.
No!
I had a feeling. That's why I said I was worried about Kip's debut, and then he's like, oh, I already did my debut, and then I realized this could also be under 300 pages.
That's what it was going to be!
Yeah. This book is some of the most incredible prose, just beauty on the page. Kaya Shante Wilson is the only writer I've read that I would put in the same tier of like prose mastery as Gene Wolfe.
wow.
Like he is just unbelievable with it, and even beyond the prose, the character relationships and character dynamics are really powerfully emotional. It plays very well in the setting. Like it's really something.
The juxtaposition of the dialogue versus the internal monologue versus like body language is amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you repeat the name of the book or story?
The Sorcerer of the Wild Deeps.
Okay.
It's another Tor.com. They really started strong over there.
Yep.
With the builders of Sorcerer of the Wild Deeps.
I see. Okay, I'm gonna add it to my list
Oh no.
to read.
Yeah, no, but my list is screwed now.
Kip's frantically checking Goodreads, reading a short story.
How long is this?
2015.
I love it.
All right, Panda, your third pick. Yeah.
I think I'm pretty safe from here on out because I don't think I would have picked anything any of you guys would pick. So I'll just go with female author, and in this pick, it's not somebody I've read, but I do have to acknowledge just what a presence she is in particularly the more YA fantasy world. And she's more recently like foraged into adult fantasy. But this is Sarah J. Maas,
Oh yeah.
and I've never read anything by her. But her name comes up so often. Like if you're just in the fantasy book world, you're gonna have heard of her name. And if you look on like Publishers Weekly's like top 10 bestsellers or whatever, so many of her books are there. So that's why I pick her.
Were you gonna pick a book or just her?
Well, she had 2 books that came out in 2015, and one of them was like Queen of Shadows, which is like her Throne of Glass series. It's like book, I don't know, 7, 8, whatever.
All right.
And then there's a second book called A Court of Thrones and Roses, and if I were to pick between those two, I would pick that one because that one's more like standalone. It's a retelling of Beauty and the Beast, I think. Um, and many people read it and love it, and it's a bit spicy apparently.
Ooh.
So,
It gets spicier, I've heard.
oh yes. And that book has been recommended to me by other people. They're like, just go read it. I'm like, well, maybe. I do
They
like
like-
retellings, but
Did they like have to put a like explicit content warning on some of the later books in some countries?
Oh wow,
Wow.
yeah.
She
that's extreme.
yeah. She's like an author, and like I hate doing this, but like ones that you hear about so much, they're so popular that like out of spite, you're like, meh, I don't need to read it. It's too,
Well, I don't think you would like her books. I don't think you're the
Yeah.
target audience.
I like spicy. What?
Well, okay, sure. But I mean, Huron read one of her books and he was like, "Oh my goodness." And it's definitely not a Huron book. She is not a Huron author.
No, definitely not.
It's funny. She is like definitely popular because I remember in the Legendarium Discord, there's been like 2 or 3 times where people write her books, but they just use like the like shorten it like MOM.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And I'm like, what are they?
Akatar.
Yeah.
A Kotar,
Yeah.
yeah.
I'm like, what are they talking about? Like, it's like, no, it's that book. So yeah. It's like she's
Yeah.
that big. It's like, good pick, good pick. You'll definitely get fan points for that in our imaginary contest. All right, who's up next? Oh, Kip, third pick.
Kyptan.
Cool. I'm going to pick.
Leaving us
Double
Have I
check,
ruined
double checking
his order?
the page count here.
edge of
Okay,
edge of our seat.
276 pages on the hardcover.
Uh,
This is The Shepherd's Crown by Terry Pratchett.
oh,
Nice.
Discworld number 41.
Great pick. I love. That's the We Freemen book, right?
This is Tiffany Aching. Yeah.
That's what I meant. Ugh, great job.
Yep. It is.
Is
I
that-
think it's the very last
Yeah,
Discworld
okay.
book ever published. It is the conclusion
Oh,
to the
wow.
series. It is also the conclusion to Tiffany Aching's little YA series.
Oh wow.
And it's Terry Pratchett saying goodbye.
Was that released after he died or right before?
It was released, I think, right before he died. It has an afterword by Rob Wilkins.
Okay. Yeah, I feel like I remember it coming out right around, the time he died. So
Yep. It's not my favorite Discworld novel. There are so many to choose from that it has some very stiff competition, but I do think it is a great book and a lovely conclusion.
there you go.
A really like heartwarming conclusion, which is really what Discworld has always been about. So I'm happy with that.
Nice pick.
Yeah, I've only read Tiffany Aching for Pratchett. Loved it.
Oh, okay.
Well, that's true. What's the one he wrote with Neil Gaiman? I didn't like that, but I read that.
Good Omens?
Yeah, it was fine.
Oh.
Sorry, sorry, Panda. We're obviously on the opposite game spectrum. All right, great pick. All right, oh, it's me. Oh boy, this isn't good.
You twice.
I hate this. I don't know why I offered to do this thing. All right, just too much stress. I guess I should do female author. I've got a lot of choices. See, the thing is, too, with 2015, I read a lot of these books when they came out, so my memory of what actually happened in these books is pretty bad because from there. So, just to talk about, all right, I'll say this book because I don't know if anyone's read it. I would like. There's one big one this year that I think is pretty popular. There's a nice, cool fairy tale-ish cover, but I'm not going to pick it. I'm going to pick Last Song Before Night by Alana C. Meyer. Anyone heard of that?
Nope.
Good. So this is she wrote this book in 2015, and I don't think a sequel came out until years later, which I was happy it was. But I've only read this one, and it's essentially about in a world where poets and musicians used to have immense powers, like it was a magical power, so to speak, if you were a poet or music. And there was a big event, kind of a war that erased everything. So now poetry and music is just what it is now. It's just words and on paper and things like that. And it's essentially kind of a quest to bring that world back. I guess my terrible recap of that book, but her writing blew me away. I don't always love flowery prose, but sometimes you read a book where you don't really care where the story's going. You just enjoy their reading, and if the story's good, it's a bonus. And that's how I felt with this one. I thought the magic was really cool. The characters, they're fine. I'm not going to say that's Hob or any of our favorites here, but I just think she has a really beautiful way of putting sentences together, to be quite honest with you. And sometimes if you're in the mood, it's definitely a mood read. I think it will work for a lot of people. And again, it's one that's, the cover is beautiful, which I know doesn't matter for reading books, but for me, I always like to point that out. It's like probably the top, and we're going to do this again, but a cover for Lacanius is probably the top 3 thing about it. And that's neither a compliment or a diss. But so... Yeah, so I would suggest anyone read this book. It's a brisk read. It's probably mid 300s in the hardback, but you could run through it, and it's just different in a genre that can sometimes get repetitive. I thought this was an interesting take, and poetry and music can't go wrong there. So,
what was the name of the book again?
Last Song Before Night.
In which category did you put this in?
Female author.
Okay.
So. All right, for a night, and I got one more, 3 categories. So the way I'm looking at wild card, I think we can all leave that to last. There's no rush to get that. Well, that's not true. Someone could use what I want. Under 300, that really screwed me. Drew really just took the legs.
I screwed 2 of you.
I know. That really took the legs out of me. All right, I'm gonna do. All right, I got it. So. I'm going to do under 300 pages. I don't think this book is awesome, so that's a great start to this. But it's called The Shootout Solution by Michael R. Underwood, and it's part of the Genrenauts series. And I believe it's also a Tor.com novella. I'm not totally sure. But the idea of this, it has a very cool concept. And that is probably the best praise about it, but it is enjoyable. They're short. It's genrenauts, so they're astronauts that hop into different genres of books to solve problems in the world. Drew's it just sounded like he got punched in the stomach. And so each book is like, the first one I think is kind of like a Western take. So these genre astronauts jump into a Western story to fix some sort of problem in their world. That's what they're paid to do. One of them's like a mystery. The second book's like a mystery book. So I definitely got tired at like the second one, and I was all set. But if you're looking for something short and sweet, and just if that concept is interesting to you, and it's not the builders. I was really banking on the builders here. That definitely should have gave Drew the first bit. Such is life. There you go.
Yeah. All right. So we're back to Kyptan.
Oh yeah.
Back to me. Okay. Gotta get things before Drew does.
Name of the game.
Okay, I'm gonna pick my fantasy pick.
Oh boy.
And it's going to be City of Blades by Robert Jackson Bennett.
I forgot to put
That was 2016.
Oh, that's
It was 2016?
That was 2016.
Oh no!
Trust me, I looked it up and I was so angry. It was January 2016.
A technicality.
Yep, January 2016. Okay, that's gone. That's
Yeah.
deleted.
That book is so freaking good though.
Really good.
I was just gonna
Really
say,
good
how
book.
did I not put that on my list? I was. What's
Yeah.
Okay. Full Fathom 5 by Max Gladstone. Book
Ooh,
3 of
all
the
right.
Craft sequence. Follows the adventures of a false god building investment banker as she navigates her island's unique form of financial tourism in the institution that she chose primarily because it was going to allow her to reform her own body into the shape that matched her soul's.
Whoa.
Dear God.
Man, I need to read the craft sequence so bad. I started the first book years ago, and I don't even remember what sidetracked me now, but I never went back to it. I own all of them. I just need to go back and actually read them.
So yeah, this is the third book in the craft sequence, but it is the first book featuring Kai, or the island of Kavikana, which is this weird little haven for offshore money. But because money is pieces of souls in this universe, it's a haven for religious idols which take in currency, faith, and rituals and provide services in return, but without that pesky sentience or the demands that gods usually come with. No, these are custom, made-to-order gods. Sorry, idols. We don't use the G word on Kavekana. That provide a range of services for whatever your client needs. And there's a mystery plot that goes down, and maybe offshore financial bankers in Souls aren't the most ethical of people all the time. Maybe there's some shady dealings.
What a surprise.
You're killing me.
It's a wild book.
You just like reinvigorated my need to read that. Like everything I've heard about that series and everything I remember from reading the first half of 3 Parts Dead was like the concepts are incredible.
Yeah.
That's a Drew series for sure. That's like one you'd feel confident recommending.
I originally thought that Last First Snow was in 2015, but no, it's in 2016, and that's the one that deals with gentrification and human sacrifice.
Oh
my gosh.
I have the first book.
I may need to make this a 2023 Inking Out Loud.
Do it.
Kip, what's your quick ranking of those books?
Oh God, I can't. Okay. I can't. Other than that, Ruin of Angels, number 6, is about repatriating art from a parallel dimension that got sealed off when colonialism happened.
Oh, man.
The colonialists literally locked away the old city in an alternate dimension and forbid people from going to it and like having their culture and their like familial libraries, and everything's a grid now.
The imagination of Gladstone is
so great.
And I didn't even mention that one has a space program in it. Or that the colonialists were squid people.
Okay.
Good lord. All right, Panda. So...
I don't know how to follow up that.
You will.
And it's all about getting her ex back, or dealing with closure about her ex.
Okay. I'm gonna go like completely on the other end of the spectrum, and for my under 300 pages, since somebody took Saga.
Had to do it.
It's this book. It's a children's book, a graphic novel called Little Robot by Ben Hatke. I'm probably saying his last name wrong. But he wrote and illustrated the book. And the summary of this book is basically like there's this five-year-old little girl who just happens to find this little robot, and she somehow activates it, and a friendship forms. It's really, really cute. And the art is also really cute. And then the little robot came from this other like robot society, and then these bigger robots want to get this little robot back for whatever they want to use him for. And so they basically have to escape these big nasty robots. So it's very cute. Highly recommend. And if you are on Instagram, you should also follow the creator on Instagram, because he shares a lot of his content there.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Never heard of it. We'll check it out. I won't read it in public because it's a children's book and I will be judged. But I will read it.
Who will judge you? Nobody will judge you. It's fine.
I will. All right.
I mean, better to read Little Robot in public than Saga, okay?
That's, as we discussed,
True.
definitely true.
True.
I wouldn't be judged. I'd be arrested if I read that in public. Much different.
You never know when Saga is going to hit you with the NC-17.
That's not an exaggeration. That's not at all. All right, Drew, you got double picks.
See, and now this is really tough because I was kind of counting on you guys picking some of my options for these and making it an easier choice. I have 3 really good options for female author here, but I think I'm going to go with Uprooted by Naomi Novik.
That was the one I was talking about. Sure.
Yeah.
Great book.
Yeah, another fairy tale retelling. Again, I think gorgeous prose. There's definitely some weirdness in this book. There's a little bit of controversy around it, which I think just adds to the flavor. But I really enjoyed the read. It was my first experience with Naomi Novik, and I was quite impressed. So I'm going for Uprooted for female author.
Nice. I think.
And
wait, did you guys do an episode on Inking Out Loud for it?
No.
The
not
Ladies
yet.
of Legendarium did.
The Ladies of Legend. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, it is on our list, but I need to get Lauren to read it. She read Spinning Silver and loved that, but she hasn't read Uprooted yet. So
I'm in that boat. I've read Spinning
you're a
Silver and
Spinning
really
Silver
enjoyed
fan?
it, but I haven't read Uprooted yet.
okay.
I did read Uprooted, but I didn't like it. I was so surprised I didn't like it because it's something that is totally up my alley, but I think it's the way that she writes in that book, the sentence structure, the rhythm of it didn't match because I like read in my brain, sound out the words,
All right.
and didn't match. So, yeah, unfortunately, I didn't like it.
Yeah, fascinating.
I've definitely heard people. I have seen or heard people say they loved one book and not the other. Like they really like Spinning Silver, but weren't a fan of Uprooted, and vice versa. So I haven't read Spinning Silver, but I'm kind of curious
Me neither.
why that is. I would assume they're kind of the same structure, maybe not structurally, but they're both fairy tale type retellings.
I like
Yeah.
Ice Kings.
Okay.
Because you are one.
Game recognizes game.
That's right.
No, but that is a good choice because I know a lot of people who've read it and really, really like it.
Yeah. Yeah, that was definitely one of the big 2015 releases.
Yep. So you have fantasy and wildcard left. I gotta imagine there's a certain author that's gonna pop up here. I'd be shocked if you didn't take this author this whole time.
I have a feeling I know which author it is, and I'm like torn between 2 here. And,
Yeah.
like, there's the obvious one, and I'm kind of leaning toward the less obvious one.
Of that author?
So for fantasy, no. For fantasy, I'm going to go with The House of Shattered Wings by Aliette de Bodard.
Oh,
Ooh.
wasn't expecting that.
Yeah. It is a really cool, like, gothic urban fantasy in a, like, post-war ruined Paris with all sorts of fantastical elements, dragons, demons, angels, fallen angels. It's just a great vibe. I really like the tone of this trilogy in general, and this was the first book in the trilogy. So,
Yeah. I love vibe reads like that.
It
yeah.
has a really, like, pretty cover.
Yes, it does.
That's an author I've been
That
wanting
was
to get
what
to.
that was what first attracted me. I was in Barnes and Noble and I saw it on the new releases, and I was like, "Wow, that is a great cover."
Yeah.
So, yeah. So
yeah.
that is my fantasy pick.
I feel like that
I
is...
did not pick the obvious one.
I think this is up my alley, so
Oh.
thank you.
Panda just adding.
And as far as the obvious author pick, I'm pretty sure I was going to pick the less obvious choice from that author.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, because I also, out of those 2, I would have picked the less obvious one in that one.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah.
Something Sanderson.
The name,
Something Sanderson.
the Ryan names with Henderson. All right, Panda, you're up.
Oh, it's me. Okay.
You also have fantasy and wild card.
I don't know what to pick for fantasy because I've got a few options.
Because I picked the best.
Okay, I'll pick something that's more like personal to me,
Yeah, of course.
but then I'll also mention something that's just like weird. Okay, so I will pick A Vision in Silver by Anne Bishop for fantasy, and it's also urban fantasy. It's like the third. No, it's what book is this? It is not the first in the series. The first in the series is called Written in Red. And it's basically like humans and elementals and like these others are very ancient fantasy beings. It's the third one in the Others series. Are basically like they're like coexisting, but there's a lot of tension. And humans are kind of taking over, like trying to take over the world. And the others are like way more powerful than them. And there's this like power struggle going on because the humans are like, no, we can take them on, and the others are like, well, it gets really bloody. But yeah, I really like the characters. I really like it's like a cozy kind of read, even though you might not expect it. And I just really like the world that Anne Bishop created for the series. So I'm gonna pick that. And then the really weird one that I read, it's this book called Under Major Domo Minor
I read Patrick.
by Patrick DeWitt.
Mm.
Yeah. I'll be honest with you, when I read it, I'm like, this is a fantasy. It's like,
Yeah, it's
it's
a weird book.
so weird.
Yeah.
And then there's a particular scene. Do you know what I'm talking about?
It's been a while, but yeah, and it was audiobook, so I don't remember much, but I remember it being
Okay.
very weird.
So it's like, normal kind of like folktale-esque beats, and then all of a sudden this scene hits, and you're like, what the hell is happening? And then he just like brushes by. Like you see the scene, you read it, and then it just moves on with the rest of the story. So if you want a surprise, go read that book.
There you go. Yeah, I think he wrote The Sisters Brothers, which is like a cool little
Yes.
Western book that I really liked. And then I read that and I said, I don't know what I'm reading right now. I was like,
It's confusing.
yeah, that's a good word for it, confusing. It's definitely off the beaten
Very
path.
weird.
All right, good pick. Kip, you have sci-fi and wild card. We all have wild card.
Cool. Huh.
You must have like 20 sci-fi options right now.
Yeah.
I've got a bunch. Oof. Okay, I'm gonna go with the one that was actually my favorite sci-fi, and I will leave gamesmanship on the table for now. My favorite sci-fi of that year was Aurora by Kim Stanley Robinson, which
Nice.
is a tale of a generation ship, and specifically the people on that generation ship, and one in particular. And one of the reasons I love it is because it shows what actually happens in a tiny pool of human genetics.
Oh boy.
And it shows what actually happens when you send a ship point blank with very little initial probing to an exoplanet light years away. And it shows what happens when you seal up a can full of resources and say, yeah, that ought to work for a couple centuries.
Oh my gosh.
And all those things combined, and it makes it my favorite generation ship story that I've ever read. Because Kim Stanley Robinson really does his research, and even if it's just on a like high level concepts level, he infuses that with really introspective characters, which make the character level work, and then it also makes the larger situations and like planetary civilization choices that they're making work as well. Because you believe the politics, you believe that these societies would work this way, you believe that these are the decisions that this crew would make, and specifically the protagonist would make.
I'm super interested in this just from that pitch.
Yep. It is a bit of a slower story, like a lot of KSR stuff is. I'm not going to call it ponderous, though I can see people saying that, but I would call it measured and deliberative. Okay. And I enjoy that.
Would you say Robinson has like a good hit ratio with his books, that they're always
from me? Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Because he puts out a lot, right?
He puts out quite a few.
Yeah.
And they're often not super related to one another, or if they are, there's a big time gap. He's rarely done a trilogy or more. So,
where would you recommend people start with him?
Red Mars.
Okay.
That's got to be the most popular
one. Some people say like the Years of Rice and Salt, but I say Red Mars.
Okay.
All right. Good pick. So it's up to my turn, and I'm going to finish my board. And I will say, if we take this to like a Twitter vote, I am going to get crucified by looking at the books I have right now. I have no I am in easy fourth place. Drew and Panda just took so many picks.
I have to mention one more thing.
Yes.
I read Aurora and Seven Eves right after each other.
Oh, whoa. Oof.
And that was a comparison in realism. That's all I'm going to say there.
Oh, dear.
Oh, boy.
Okay. Go on, Yetti.
Thank you. All right. So the smart choice would be to take a very popular author such as Mr. Sanderson and just try to get his rabid fan base to pity vote me. I do like Firefight. I'm hard on Sanderson sometimes, but I do really like that book. I hate the main character, and I hate his metaphor trick thing he does all the time, but I do like that book.
But Megan is so good in that book.
Yes. That's the thing. For that book, the other characters, and the city, I thought Sanderson's world building was really good in that, but I'm not going to pick that. All right, since Panda took Grace of Kings, which I was really banking on, I will just I'll just have to shamelessly plug my favorite author again, which I don't mind doing, but thought I'd switch up. So I'm going to pick Half the World by Joe Abercrombie. And if you don't know the series, this was his foray into YA. It was more a marketing gimmick than anything. I think this is just the same Abercrombie, just a little toned down. It's like Diet Coke version Abercrombie. But it's still his bread and butter. This focuses more on, if you read the first Law trilogy, they have like kind of two sections, the Northerners and the Southerners. And this is very much a Northerner type story. So if you like those characters, it's kind of like a Norseman Viking type society. And it's pretty much what you get from him. Characters that are pretty gray. There's backstabbing and cool duels. And I don't know, everything I love about him. Particularly characters. And in the second book, I think it's one of his. I think this second book's my second favorite book of his, including adult Abercrombie is. That's kind of an uncommon opinion. But I think the way in the first book, he focuses on one character, and then the second book, he changes the POV to be a different character's point of view. And that character that was in the first book is now kind of not a side character, but you're not in their head anymore. And he switched to just a more interesting female character to lead in this kind of male-dominated world, even though she can fight just as good as all of them. And it was a great choice by him. And I just think he writes the best characters. I know that's not well received in this panel right here, but for me, this series was like kind of like crack. The third book isn't as good. He didn't really nail the landing. But if we're talking book twos, I put it over Golden Sun. So in your face, Panda.
Oh, really?
Ooh.
Yeah, for me. Yeah, but I'm also
I haven't read any Abercrombie, so I didn't choose him.
yeah. Well, how dare you? And this would be a good starting point. So no,
I have
Yeah,
that
I read.
series. I just haven't
no,
gotten to
it's
it.
fine. No, so
I read Half a King. I did not continue on.
yeah, it's fine. I liked it, but I think a lot that problem with that book is the character he chose to be used as the POV. I think he worked a lot better in the second book when he's kind of the side character. He kind of
Okay.
yeah. Have you? Yeah, I don't want to.
Yeah, I found Half a King painfully obvious.
Yes, I'll put yes. There's like one like twist that you like can see coming if you've read fantasy, especially Abercrombie, but just fantasy in general. You're like, yeah, we know who that is. Like, or what's gonna.
Yeah,
We know what that character's gonna do. It's very Abercrombie. It's like I guess it would be comfort food if you're an Abercrombie fan. But
Yeah, sure.
yeah. All right, so I picked that, and so I have wild cards. So this can go anywhere. We can go any genre.
I'm very curious. Yeah.
Um,
I mean, 2015 was like, it was a big year.
Big year.
So big. Like, we got, I mean, in the other genres, we got like Grey from E.L. James.
no.
I can't even believe that like my last pick hasn't come up yet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guarantee you, I'll be surprised if anybody has read my last pick.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting. All right.
I'm tempted to just like, for just giggles and you know what's, to pick The Blood Mirror by Brent Weeks. Probably my most loathed book of all time. But
Oh, wow.
yeah, I have major problems with Kip's storyline in that book too. Very much. So it's one of those. I don't want to go on about it, but it's one of those things, and I hate to do this, where it like made me judge the author. and it's like
Aww.
Oh, wow.
it's like one of the things you like never want to do when reading. As a reader, I shouldn't, but it was hard not to. Okay. Anyway, so I'll just pick horror. I'll pick horror because yeah, I love the horror genre, and I'll pick by Paul Tremblay. It's called A Head Full of Ghosts. And if you've ever heard of this book, this author's kind of gotten pretty big in the horror genre since this. This is his debut book. There was just a trailer for a movie with Dave Bautista called like Knock at the Cabin Door or something, and that's based on a book he's written. And this book is about a family whose young daughter, like middle school, is diagnosed with like acute schizophrenia. She's acting very, strangely, and they don't know what to do. Medical bills are rising. They keep taking her to the doctors, and they take her to a priest, and the priest says, that, like, your daughter is possessed, demonically. Like, you need to have an exorcism. And the family's like, okay, we don't know what else to do. And he's like, I'll put you in touch with these producers. They actually want to film your daughter have an exorcism. So it's really The Real World meets The Exorcist. And it kind of jumps into morals of doing something like, reality TV and doing something, putting your daughter in that place and making money off of it, where they say it's for medical bills and things. But, and it's, if you like horror, it's definitely an interesting read and entertaining and morally ambiguous, and it's a great ending. But I don't know if your stomach could handle it, Panda. I'm sorry.
Yeah, probably not.
So it was either that or the Mad Men book that recaps all 7 seasons, but I don't think anyone here wanted to hear me talk about Mad Men. so I'll pick that. And Kip, it's back to you for your final pick.
Cool. Are we gonna do like honorable mentions at the end?
Yep. You nailed
Cool.
it. Yep.
Awesome. So my wild card pick, I'm going to be going back into the harder sci-fi, and I'm going to pick The Dark Forest by Liu Cixin,
Nice.
which is the continuation of The Three Body Problem. It's the middle book in that trilogy. And
Not translated by Ken Liu.
No, it's not. Translated by
Docking points.
ISO Post and Joel Martinson. Oh, translated by like at least 3 people. Okay.
Oh wow.
It takes 3 people to do what one Ken Liu does. I see what you're saying.
Yes.
It would be a major spoiler for the first book to talk about anything that happens in this book, but I will say that the astrophysics of this book are actually fairly accurate.
Oh.
Okay.
And that is that's not a given in something that extrapolates this far ahead. But I will say, like, there was an attempt made to make the thought experiments in this book applicable to real life science.
Oh, nice.
And like, you could take several pieces of technology, not all of them, but several pieces of technology out of this book and directly put them into real life effect, and they would work. So that's fun.
Okay.
Might take a lot of money, but they would work.
Well, if you're the Chinese government.
No. You got to be a world government at that point. You got to be a planetary civilization to do some of these things.
Wow.
All right, Panda. Last pick.
Okay. I'm going to pick something that I would be very surprised. Well, actually, Yetti, you may have read this one,
Ooh.
but I don't think Kip and Drew would have. What is this genre? Memoir. Humor memoir. It's called Furiously Happy, a funny book about horrible things by Jenny Lawson. And this is her, like, I think, second or third book. And basically, she runs this blog, and she has all sorts of different, like, illnesses, like physical, mental, all the different kinds. And she's very open about her own experiences and like what's going through her head and her family life. And she runs this blog, and she will just write these stories about her life. And they are so funny. It sounds really bad, like laughing about her experiences dealing with anxiety, dealing with all these like tough issues, but she is so good about bringing perspective, and just like she makes it very enjoyable to read while you're also getting a glimpse into what life is like for somebody like that. So, if you Google the cover, there is a giant raccoon on the cover, and it is like her own taxidermy raccoon that she found. And she has a story in there about how she'll like basically reenact and like act out stories with this raccoon. Anyway, I highly recommend if you need something a bit lighthearted.
Yeah, I haven't read it, but I was just going to say all I remember is that cover. It's like a sprawled out raccoon, and I was like too scared to even touch it. I don't know. It's good. That's good. Have some laughs.
Yeah.
All right, great. That's so Drew. You just have one pick left. Your wild card. The floor is yours.
So, this is a book that I never hear anything about. It is The Vor by Brian
goodness.
Catling.
Who's it by?
Have you read it? Brian Catling?
Never heard of it.
Yeah.
I know somebody who's read it, and it's just like, what the heck is this book?
Oh my God.
It is crazy. The Vor is this like inscrutable, like mythological jungle, and there's this book almost defies explanation. It is so crazy.
That's a weird cover.
How do you spell it? The
VORRH. And this is actually one that I've been seriously thinking about rereading because I read it when it came out, and I'm not sure I was ready to read it.
It's a debut.
It is quite a book. But the reason it's been kind of on my mind lately is that the author just recently, like last week, passed away.
Oh.
So yeah, it's like if you're ever bored some weekend and want to read something totally out there, this might be the cup of tea for you.
This sounds almost like Annihilation by Jeff Vandermeer.
Right.
So it's funny. I've never actually read any Vandermeer other than his introduction to the Dread Empire books by Glenn Cook.
So I am seeing that The Vor was first published in 2012.
What? No.
It is what Goodreads says. I didn't want to rain on your parade.
But I think like it may have gone out of print and then it came back in 2015.
So?
Oh, no. Yeah, because I definitely read it in 2015 when it was like, oh my gosh, it's same publication date, November 2012. Well, I've also never seen this cover of it.
It's an interesting cover.
Risque.
Yeah, okay. It was republished in 2015.
Yeah.
I think we...
Oh, man. Okay.
I say that doesn't
think
count.
I
that
just went on that long thing.
I think that counts.
I don't think that counts. Otherwise, I
What?
could put The
No, I
Martian
don't
in
think it
here when
does.
it was
Well,
republished in
okay.
the movie.
Because technically, Saga, like every issue of Saga would have been published before.
That's transformative, though.
You keep,
They put in the volume.
you keep my Saga pick out of here. Leave him out of this.
Well, in that case,
Drew gets a double dip.
what do I want to do? Yeah. I mean, I guess I'm just going to go with Firefight then,
Yeah.
by Brandon Sanderson.
Great. You're definitely going to win this draft.
I
Not
mean,
perfect state.
I think the 4 counts.
No. I'm like super bummed about this. I didn't even look it up because I remembered it so vividly. Where I was like, I know it was like a new release, you know.
I mean,
Man,
technically
well,
it was a
today I
new
learned.
release.
Sorry, man.
Yeah.
Talk about how good Firefight was.
Yeah, I mean, Firefight is a very different kind of book. YA fantasy. Nowhere near as graphic as The Vor. But yeah, like Yetti was saying, that while the main character in The Reckoners by Brandon Sanderson is not the best, Firefight is, in my opinion, by far the best book in the trilogy on the strength of its side characters. There's some really, really good twists at the end. And yeah, the kind of the most major side character, Megan, is one of my favorite characters Brandon has ever written. And this book is a big part of why. Yeah.
Nice.
I'm like weirdly crushed that The Vor was not 2015.
I mean, it has a new cover. It basically got a rebirth. So
So cool, I can talk
Yeah,
about The
so
Martian.
the cover that I know is just like the white cover with the
Yeah.
faces of the moon on it. Yeah.
you're not getting by Kip. He's a stickler, if anything.
That'll be my honorable mention.
Hey. Okay. So, yeah, we'll just let's go. I'll read our picks real quick just to recap and butcher all the names because I can't pronounce them. So, Drew. In fantasy, Drew picked House of Shattered Wings. In sci-fi, he picked Illuminae. Under 300 pages, The Builders. Debut, The Sorcerer of Wildeeps. Did I say that right?
Of the Wild
Wild
Apes.
Apes. Thank you. Female author, Uprooted, and Wild Card, his second pick, Firefight. Panda, for fantasy, picked A Vision in Silver, Sci-Fi, Golden Sun. Under 300, Little Robot. Debut, Grace of Kings. Female author, Court of Throne and Roses, and Wild Card, Furiously Happy. Kip was very confident with his picks. He picked in fantasy Full Fathom 5, sci-fi Aurora, under 300, The Shepherd's Crown, debut, Library at Mount Char, female author, the 5th season, Wild Card, Dark Forest, and for me, I picked fantasy Half the World, sci-fi, Saga Volume 5, under 300, Shootout Solution, debut, Beyond Redemption, female author, Last Song Before Night, and Wild Card, Head Full of Ghosts. And I think we should put up, I'll like try to work with Panda. We can put up like a little poll on Twitter maybe, and I can put like a screenshot of our picks. But yeah, so let's quickly go. Any honorable mentions you just wanted to bring up? Kip, we can start with you.
Seven Eves would have been on here if it wasn't for the last third of the book. Nemesis Games, which is book
Yes.
5 of The Expanse, which has my favorite domestic abuse villain. Uh, Ancillary Mercy, which is the
Mm.
conclusion to the Imperial Ratch trilogy. I thought it was a fun conclusion, but I do think that the trilogy as a whole went on for a little bit too long.
Mm.
And Binti,
Oh,
which
Mindy.
was a lovely short little piece of work. Oh, and Gentleman Joel and the Red Queen, which is the last book of the Vorkosigan saga, or at least the last current one.
If Panda would have taken Saga, I would have had to take Nemesis Games. That was my fallback.
Gentleman Joel was lovely, but it was not. It's a different book than what I was celebrating today.
Sounds like a Regency romance novel or something.
It is a romance novel.
Panda, did you have any honorable mentions or left over?
Trigger Warning by Neil Gaiman, which was his newest collection of short stories and stuff. And I think that'll be it, because I did read a lot of things that I wasn't too keen on.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
it was a bit hard to choose.
Oh yeah, those are my last resorts. Drew, did you have any honorable mentions?
I'm going to protest in solidarity with the Vor.
Yeah, that's fair. I had like I said, the ones that were terrible that I wanted to draft: Armada by Ernest Cline, Bloodmere Brett Weeks. Court of Fives by Kate Elliott. It's like a young adult, which is kind of fine, like kind of a gladiator type thing. A Crown for Cold Silver by Alex Marshall. I know Yasna
Oh, yeah.
on Legendarium Discord like lives for that series. I think it's okay. I don't love it, but it's worth bringing up. Nemesis Games. Oh, one I almost wanted to bring up: 12 Kings of Sharakai by Bradley P.
Yeah.
Bulow. I really like that book. I love that world. It's like Arabian Nights, Aladdin with fantasy world, with a really cool protagonist. She's like a female pit fighter. Again, not too different from Aladdin, maybe. Shadows of Self. Isn't that the second Sanderson that was this year?
Yeah, it
Yep.
was.
Yeah. It's not my favorite Sanderson, but I mean, Sanderson's like pizza. Even like subpar Sanderson is still like pretty good. It's like enjoyable to read.
Yep.
And then The Grey Bastards by Jonathan French, which is just literally Sons of Anarchy with orcs and who ride literal hogs. Just kind of fun. But
Did anybody read Nimona?
yes, that's the other one. Nimona.
Yes.
I almost drafted
Okay.
that in. I had that under 300, and I almost had under a female author, but I don't think she's female. I think she has. It's like non-binary. I don't know. I didn't want to get in trouble, so I didn't know.
I don't know the author. All I know is its website.
Yeah, but that's really good. I like Nimona quite a bit. It's a cute story. Good artwork. It's just kind of like about an evil villain, like sorcerer villain, and he has like a spunky villain sidekick who's a little girl. But it touches on
Who's significantly angrier than he is.
yeah, right. But it touches on like important topics and subjects too. I should have picked that. I picked stupid the shootout solution, genre not. On my team.
I was also thinking about Children of Time by Adrian Tchaikovsky.
A lot of good books this
Yeah,
year.
2015.
Good
Good
year.
year.
All right, let's sign off. First, I want to thank Drew from Inking Out Loud for coming on with us. Did you want to plug like future episodes, your Patreon?
Yeah. So we are currently in the middle of a Mistborn Era 2.
Ooh,
Nice.
Which got a mention on this episode here. We're kind of in the lead up to The Lost Metal coming out in November. And that's going to be a ton of fun. If you're a Cosmere fan, you definitely want to read that book.
Oh yeah.
And so, like Yetti said, we do have a Patreon. That's patreon.com/inkingoutloud. We got all kinds of fun stuff going on there, including a tier that Yetti himself took advantage of and forced us to read The Divine Cities, which was an excellent choice.
It's either that or the
Yeah, we
Canians.
are.
No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, that was a ton of fun. I'm very, very glad to have read more Robert Jackson Bennett. So, yeah, you can find us on Twitter at IOL Podcast. We have a Discord server. I think I have a tweet pinned for that one that has an eternal link. But if not, see me around on Facebook, Twitter, Discord for the Legendarium here. Yeah. But in general, thanks for having me join. This was a ton of fun.
No problem.
Yeah.
I would definitely suggest being a patron too, because in regards to this episode, I believe you have a Patreon only episode for the builders. I think that's when I joined, or why I joined.
We do.
Yes.
We do indeed.
So, and it's definitely worth it. So, but let's get out of here. I want to thank Craig from the Legendarium for letting us use his space. I want to thank Horizon Brave for starting this little get up. And I want to thank my lovely panelists, Befuddled Panda, Kyptan, and Drew, again, from Inking Out Loud Podcast. We'll see you later, guys.
Bye.
Bye.